Welcome, Eleanor. We just wanted to know just about you. Can you introduce yourself to our readers?
Sure, okay. So yeah, my name is Eleanor Morrissey. I'm from the UK, if maybe you can tell by the accent, but I live in Belgium. I've been active in the Greens since around 2016. I got active in FYEG a little later, and I've been part of the Executive Committee since 2019 and co-spokesperson since 2020. So I've done a few different roles and hats in FYEG. But yeah, I joined the Greens. My motivation is because for me, the Greens are always the strongest on social rights and human rights, and especially when it's connected to climate justice, of course. And yeah, in my actual day job, I'm a communications and policy officer. I work for a health NGO where we're advocating for patient rights in areas such as medicine, digital and care, but also in environmental policy.
Yeah, and then I guess along the same lines, we were wondering if you could maybe describe yourself in 3 to 5 words.
Cool. Well, I was trying to think of a sentence to put this, and to be honest, what I could come up with was angry at old white men.
Okay, and now maybe more about your role. What would you say? So you said you've been in the EC or in the FYEG since 2019, and for this next mandate, so let's start it this year. What would your main focus be, you think, you personally?
Yeah, so for me, it's actually continuing a lot of what I was working on last year, because sometimes you need more than a year to do the things you want to do. But a lot of it is to work on FYEG's more inclusivity in terms of for both our volunteers and our staff, because I'm the office responsible, so work closely with our SecGen, with our staff. And just to make sure that FYEG is not only welcoming and makes people feel very safe, but it's a place that they are encouraged to grow, that they can really develop in their own political and professional ways. And as most importantly, to really stop the activist burnout that can happen. And also another interest for me is to really look ahead for FYEG and to see where are we going and what can we do ahead of the European elections. So I'm really determined to kickstart the Young Candidates platform again. We have some plans made from last year as well, but also working more closely with our partners and to really put FYEG, put the Young Greens out there. And so when it comes to the next elections, people are voting for our young candidates. Which is ambitious, but you know, we can get there.
Yeah, that's great. That's very interesting. So you said you're from the UK, and what would you say the role of the Green movement is in the UK?
Good question. Also because Green Party of England and Wales has its leadership elections at the moment. So I think this is I hope the next leaders will see these interviews as well to see the Young Greens. But I think right now it's very interesting because we're still regarded as kind of small fish really in the political sphere, which is also kind of strange because we have a lot of activists, a lot of people interested in voting for Green, even if they're maybe not 100% convinced because of the way the political structure is, you know, like, oh, Greens might not be a wasted vote. So I think the role of the Greens is to, you know, really spread the message and get people who are maybe frustrated with the bigger parties and are seeing the Greens as not just an alternative, but the actual solution to a lot of the issues we face, whether it's climate or social, or if it's about equality issues as well. And because our policies are usually pretty great, so we have the solutions, and I think we just need to make sure that people realize that not only are they achievable, but that the Greens are the ones pushing them forward. So I think it's about making more noise, getting more noticed, and getting more people on board.
Definitely, yeah. Hopefully it goes well with the elections.
Gosh, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so you mentioned you know, social rights. That's a big part of FYEG, and you know, at this moment in time, LGBTQI plus rights are fundamental. What do you think should be done or could be done, or how could we achieve stronger LGBTQI plus rights?
So within FYEG, I think, as you were saying earlier, like it's really good that we are working on more inclusivity in these spaces. And I think we just have to make sure that we are still committed, but also really be open to, well, not just criticism, but also advice on like how to make things better, because I always have the idea that there's always room for improvement. So it's not just about what are we advocating for in policy, but are we making sure that, you know, as activists, is it a safe space, first of all, for people to be themselves, to express their views, and to make sure that, you know, the topics we're discussing are not, it's the people who they concern the most are actually like leading the discussions and presenting ideas. The idea of nothing about us without us, I think is very important. So yes, and I think at FYEG, we always have more ways of being more intersectional as well. We can always improve on that. And it's by working closely with more grassroots activists as well, because I think we have some strong connections, and a lot of people come from that and join FYEG. So to make sure like what are the policies that we're fighting for, do they come from the grassroots movements as they should? And then advocating it more in European policy. This is a different ways I think to do it. One of my favorite things that I love to talk about, even though people maybe find it a bit like controversial almost, but it's about quotas. I think as we see Green politicians, you know, I did just say I was angry at old white men. So I think as the Green Party, we should be making sure that most of our politicians aren't old white men, making sure that there are LGBT candidates coming forward and really changing the political system from within.
And now sort of jumping away from that, what would you say, how could someone increase, or how could FYEG increase the representation of Eastern and Southern European MOs in FYEG, which we at EcoSprinter think it's very important to just have like, you know, that geographical diversity as well.
So this, I think, first of all, to always give a shout out to FYEG's sister organization, CDN, because they've got Eastern and also Southern and Green members, and they do some really cool work, and it's always really fun to work with them, of course. And I think FYEG's role, a lot of it which we do and we to continue focusing on is the capacity building, because I'm looking at different trainings, and this could be about political knowledge and ideas, but it's also about the organizational aspects. So like things such as like how to, you know, if you've got a small group of people that's maybe getting more members, like how to recruit more people, how to fundraise, kind of understanding the different democratic structures to make sure that also when people, you know, might grow a bit older and leave the Young Greens, is there a handover process? So then new people getting involved and leading and things like that. So, I mean, of course, it's not always the easiest these days, but we can still do these trainings online as well. So I think that's the most important thing that FYEG can do is, and also listening to our current members in Southern and Eastern Europe to understand what is it exactly that they need. And again, coming back to, is there a current activist burnout? Because of course, the political context can, you know, of course, be very different, and then fighting the same battles is, you know, we can see it can be exhausting. So it's about also it can FYEG support in bringing these issues more to the European level and raising awareness around that, but also supporting them in the more local and national actions as well. So yeah, I think, yeah, just really listening to the current members and also helping them reach out to more and really spread what is it they're working on and why people should get involved.
And now more to sort of your background, I guess, and your work, because you said you work with a health NGO. Are you sort of thinking of bringing, you know, climate action and the climate crisis and its impact on health in the end, because it's such a big part of environmental health, you know, human health as well, into the FYEG? And if so, why? And if not, why not, maybe?
So yeah, to put it simply, yes, I think we can be talking about health. I mean, we will be starting to, but maybe in a different angle. Like next year, our work plan will be about mental health. And I mean, it's very much welcome and really. And so from that, can we start talking more broadly about health and yes, about the environmental aspects? Because yeah, my work is actually in respiratory health, so it's really, really relevant, and also seeing the impact of pollution on people, as well as, you know, like and like our houses, if they aren't sustainably built, and of course this also comes to affordability as well, these can really impact people's health long term. And so that's, yeah, I think we've already got these ideas in FYEG, and maybe in my role as co-spokes, I can push for it a little bit and see how much more we can talk about, because when we talk about things such as housing rights, this can also link to what is a healthy home, and also about, you know, public spaces. Like we want greener public spaces. And of course, this is very important for people's health, not just their physical health, but also their mental health as well. And yes, but on the other hand, I am also determined. I'm always bringing ideas about climate and climate justice to work as well, which we'll be working more on. So yes, even though I might feel like, oh, I feel like a bit of a spy sometimes, I can push our great young green ideas into work and see. And also, of course, making sure that our parent party, the European Green Party, is also starting to look into the connections between environment and health, which they're doing. So it's great.
So yeah, now sort of our last question was more of a lighthearted one, just wondering if you had any green recommendations for readers, I guess. Anything from books to music, even platforms, organizations, podcasts, anything that you could tell us that we should watch or listen or read.
Oh, so I have one idea that's actually quite serious, but I'm going to give you my lighthearted recommendation then, because it can also maybe tell a bit more about my personality. So one of my favorite bands I'm listening to at the moment is a UK punk band. Well, I don't think they always like to be called punk, but they are. They're called Idols. And I think it's for me, it's super interesting because, I mean, I loved punk listening back on punk when it first started, and what's their, you know, the radical, the political and everything. And now it's seeing how it's transformed into punk bands nowadays. They sing about things such as toxic masculinity, about the conservatives in the UK, and also about, yeah, just breaking down like gender stereotypes and everything like that. And they also have songs about mental health. So yeah, I think if anybody wants a fun punk recommendation, to give Idols a listen, because you can just get really pumped up by the music whilst also listen to very, very relevant topics to the Young Greens.
All right, thank you so much then, and have a good evening.
Thanks, you too.